Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host, Nosheen Bukhari, bringing you the latest news from the entertainment world, followed by a movie review from the 2019 crime El Camino. First things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Kurt Cobain's self-portrait, Elton John's piano, Prince's guitar, and more items nabbed nearly $5 million at auction. Black Widow's first family pulls no punches in promo clip. U2 guitarist Edge launches guitar strap in support of refugee women. Theater and music facing lockdown reopening delay catastrophe. And Superman actor Ned Beatty passed away at age 83. And now moving to the top story of the day. A new promo for Marvel Studios' upcoming Black Widow film shows that Natasha Romanoff's first avenging family was not one to pull any punches or tolerate bad jokes. To discuss this further, we have Andy Jones with us, who is an entertainment journalist. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on again.
So, Andy, watching the first clip from promo, one can easily guess that Avengers were not the first superhero family Natasha Romanoff had. So it means that it's going to start off telling that who she was.
Absolutely. So, as ever with the Avengers sequence, it always goes sort of backwards, forwards.
Yeah.
And so you can watch this film entirely on its own merits. But if you are obviously an Avengers super geek, this will tie in nicely with the previous things that happened before. This film is set after Captain America Civil War. That's the 2016 film. And it features Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, as played, of course, by Scarlett Johansson. She finds herself alone and forced to confront a dangerous conspiracy. You can tell I'm reading this off the cereal box, can't you? A dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past, pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down. Romanoff must deal with her history as a spy and broken relationships left in the wake long before she became an Avenger. So whilst this is set after the Civil War, Captain America Civil War 2016 film, this does obviously go back and look at her past and unpack all of that sort of mystery and her history and how she came about to play the role that she played in Soviet Russia.
Right. And Andy, Black Widow will be one of the very few female superhero movies produced by Marvel, but at the same time, Scarlett Johansson told that it will be the last Marvel movie of Scarlett Johansson, which means that there won't be any Black Widow sequel, leaving Marvel Universe once again deficient in female superhero movies. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we never say never, of course, with Avengers and Marvel, because they, characters die, they get cloned, they get recreated. Yeah. And actually, the Black Widow character, which first appeared in Marvel in Marvel Comics, the paper version in 1964, actually had many different versions. Yeah. There was actually a Black African Black Widow, and there was an Asian Black Widow, I think, and there was all sorts of Black Widows. And so, without delving too deep into what might happen in the future before we enjoy this wonderful film, it is quite possible that there might be other versions of Black Widow, and Black Widow is almost like a code name, rather like we have versions of James Bond, and James Bond is the character, and we get different versions of the James Bond version. We may have different versions of the Black Widow character moving forward. And of course, there is a Black Widow sister, which we see in this film, and the Black Widow franchise focuses on what goes on in this Soviet-era Red Room, this spy room that's set in Volgograd in Soviet-era Russia. And so it is quite possible that whilst Scarlett Johansson, who's been the character, as you say, for 10, 11 years now, is being retired, she's hanging up her cat suit, we will potentially, I say, see other Black Widow characters or similar in the future.
Right. And Andy, since the film revolves around Natasha confronting her complicated past as a spy, How much potential are you expecting from the story and the characters to develop?
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, Marvel films never completely end, do they? There's always threads left and things that they can explore. But this focuses on her life with her sister. You see an awful lot more of the character Red Guardian, who's obviously played by David Harbour. David Harbour has been in lots of, and the Red Guardian has been in an awful lot of these films. He's married to the singer Lily Allen, of course, and has been in everything sort of Brokeback Mountain to Stranger Things. We see an awful lot more of him, who brings sort of the humour and sort of the comic one-liners in it, while Scarlett Johansson holds down the action and the main plot.
Okay, so Andy, Scarlett Johansson tried to bring in a concern in the limelight in which she expressed that she had some reservations with the revealing bodysuits because that is a bit of woman objectification. She also mentioned a few times when she felt a little harassed on set. Keeping these concerns in mind, do you think this can be one of the reasons the franchise is not continuing? And if it is the reason, what reforms can filmmakers work on in order to better the concept of women superhero movies?
I think when we had, obviously, Black Panther a few years ago, which was an absolutely incredible success, and it feels absolutely crazy that there wasn't a black superhero before that, or at least one that was particularly successful. I think you can always move the goalposts. You can always change things with the Marvel series. However, the costumes, you know, you can make them less sexy or less pronounced and things, but the costumes are a fundamental part of the superhero series. And whether you're talking Marvel or any superhero series anywhere, the idea of a tight suit with superpowers is part of the deal. It's very difficult to then have a sort of a superhero in a karate costume or you know, parachute pants or jeans and a t-shirt. It is a fun thing. Whether yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's someone kicking around in jeans and a hoodie, it doesn't feel very superhero-ish. You're just then a completely different sort of type of character. But I think women, female actors, particularly Scarlett Johansson, who's done this job for more than 10 years, she would know an awful lot more about it than me. But equally, and they should have as much autonomy as they want in it. But equally, I feel like superhero costumes, you can make them slightly less sexy, slightly less provocative. You can make them, you know, more agreeable to the characters that are playing them. But again, we can't have a superhero in jeans and a hoodie, can we?
Right. Andy, critics have speculated that the Avengers franchise will now be replaced by the Eternals. However, a connection between the two has been revealed. It's been mentioned in the Eternals trailer. Do you foresee Romanoff appearing on and off in any of new MCU franchises?
I mean, you never say never. I mean, as I say, the Black Widow series appears to be, if you look at the original comic books, it appears to be multiple different characters. And it's sort of, I mean, obviously Scarlett Johansson's made the character her own, and Natasha Romanoff is Black Widow. You never say never with any of the Avengers or Eternal series. I mean, with the nature of the technology that they use, you know, they go back in time, they clone each other, they, you know, mirror each other's qualities, and they can steal each other's superpowers and all this sort of stuff. And so it exists in a world that's very human, but also completely make-believe, where there's no rules or, you know, basic things don't apply, such as life and death. So I never say never. I'd imagine they're looking to move away from what they had, but equally you can see if the new series doesn't quite work, they might bring elements of the old one across. And equally, as we've seen with the Avengers series, we could be talking 10, 15, 20 different films in any new series. So there's always room for any number of different things to happen.
Right. Andy, of course, Marvel never disappoints when it comes to plot, settings, and story, and of course, direction. But how hopeful are you for the new cast in this movie, especially with the addition of Rachel Weisz?
Yeah, so Rachel Weisz is in this one. Ray Winston, who's everyone knows Ray Winston, a fantastic British actor. He plays I suppose the angry, stop-at-nothing Russian spy boss. We've got David Harbour in this. Florence Pugh is in this. And it's filmed everywhere from sort of Norway, Hungary, Budapest, Morocco, Britain, America. And so it will be the summer blockbuster that we've been promised. It will have big characters, big stars, assume big explosions, great one-liners, great costumes, a cliffhanger of an ending. I assume it'll be the summer blockbuster that we've been denied for the last 2-3 seasons while the pandemic's been going on.
Right. Being a spy, Romanov's character was always very unpredictable. I mean, we all saw her character developing from kind of a villain to a hero. I mean, do you think Marvel could have come up with Black Widow's own season? I mean, they had a lot of options to develop the stories. There was a lot of room for creating a whole lot of season rather than shutting the franchise down with just one movie. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they've created a whole alternative universe, haven't they? This Russian Secret Service center, which is set in Volgograd. It's quite possible that you could go on and on and on, almost like they do with any number of spy series, let alone Marvel series. It feels like this. I don't know. It feels like they had another movie deal with Scarlett Johansson, and they were making another movie, but it doesn't look like Scarlett Johansson wants to sign on for the rest of the series. It may be, as I say, that they think that the whole Russian spy thing's a bit cliche. Do they have doubts about how successful it will be? Scarlett Johansson's clearly a big enough star, along with Rachel Weisz, Harbour, and Ray Winston, to carry this sort of franchise. But perhaps, I don't know, perhaps they doubt it'll be. They'll be able to make movie after movie with it. Perhaps there's more excitement about doing other things. I mean, I don't know, but why wouldn't you cast more and more of these? But equally, if Scarlett Johansson doesn't want to do anymore and she's quite entitled to after 10, 11 years carrying this sort of characters, it's sort of like, well, you've got to create it from scratch again. You've got to have another character arc. You've got to have something else, more plots, more characters, and then you might as well start another one.
Right. Great discussion, Andy. Thank you very much indeed for being with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was Andy Jones with his thoughts on the new Black Widow. And now moving to other story details of the day. A slew of items once owned by industry icons nabbed a total of nearly $5 million during a 3-day auction organized by Julian's Auctions, including Kurt Cobain's self-portrait, Elton John's grand piano, and Prince's electric guitar. More than 1,000 pieces were on the block during the event, which took place from Friday to Sunday, including instruments, memorabilia, wardrobes, and personal properties owned and used by recording artists from all genres. Other artists represented in the auction included Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, the Beatles, Elvis Presley, Cher, Lady Gaga, Madonna, and Jimi Hendrix. Love Welcomes Today announced a new partnership with legendary U2 guitarist The Edge to create and sell unique collector items, guitar straps, to help provide employment and support to refugee women. Launching the new Love Welcomes product in advance of World Refugee Day on June 20th, The Edge said, "It's a difficult time. We all cling to the hope of a better future. Love Welcomes works with women and families who have been through the very worst of times, unimaginable trauma, and life-changing events. The first 500 straps sold will also receive a personally signed postcard from The Edge." Live music, theater, and other events have been dealt a hammer blow by a 4-week delay to the final stage of easing lockdown restrictions in England. The move means the capacity of venues will remain limited by the requirements around social distancing. The entertainment sector has appealed for urgent financial support. The Society of London Theatres said the decision would have serious implications for many theaters. And U.S. actor Ned Beatty, known for his roles in Deliverance, Superman, and many other films, has died at the age of 83. According to his manager, he died on Sunday from natural causes, surrounded by his family and loved ones. Born in Kentucky in 1937, Beatty was Oscar-nominated in 1977 for playing a corporate CEO in Network, a role he filmed in just a single day. He also appeared in All the President's Men and was heard as menacing teddy bear Lotso on Toy Story 3. And that is it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break with a review on the movie El Camino. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In this segment, we will review El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, 2019 American new Western crime thriller film that serves as a sequel to the television series Breaking Bad. The film continues the story of Jesse Pinkman, who partnered with former teacher Walter White throughout the series. To review the film, we are joined by our favorite film critic, Matt Capon. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, do you think Vince Gilligan has done a masterful job of providing a final chapter for a series noted for its remarkable characters?
I think it's a bit generous to call El Camino a final chapter. I think it would be more apt to call it a bow on the ending of Breaking Bad. It was a really enjoyable film, but the question still remains, what did it add to that very bittersweet ending to Breaking Bad and the story of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman? Arguably, not much.
Right. And now Jesse's character is a whole lot of a story in itself, which is why a complete movie was created on this character. However, do you think it helped in building the Breaking Bad franchise?
Not really, but conventional wisdom really does say that this film is going to get better with age. And I'm inclined to agree with that. It does improve with subsequent rewatches. I only rewatched it last night. And it does improve. But again, does it add anything to that really gripping story of the rise and fall of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman? Not really. It really doesn't. But conversely, it is still a very enjoyable watch. It's just a question of what does it bring to the table?
Right. And Matt, what are some of the key elements, for example, characterizations, settings, that the writer retained from the series to maintain its integrity?
Well, there were lots of callbacks and there were lots of nods to Breaking Bad with Jesse Pinkman's story. There were flashbacks. The flashback with Walter White, the one we all wanted to see, was quite touching, but felt too short, too swift. I wanted to see more, but there was a certain grittiness to it, just as we had with Breaking Bad. You somewhat knew what to expect, but you didn't know what to expect, which was really at the core of what Breaking Bad was. And that very sad ending with the disappearer was, I thought, was a really nice touch. It didn't feel like it wasn't part of the Breaking Bad universe, so to speak.
Right. Talking about the sad ending, I mean, in your opinion, does El Camino give a relatively happy ending to Jesse's story as he gets to, start his life again in a wider perspective?
I don't think Jesse Pinkman deserves a happy ending, but I think he deserves a satisfying ending. And I think that's what this was. It was a satisfying end. It was closure for that character, and you saw that through the course of El Camino, he was understanding he was never going to be able to completely move away from his history with Walter White, but he was able to come to terms with it and to accept the fact that it would always be a burden on his back.
Right. And were you rooting for Jesse in spite of his earlier behavior? I mean, do you believe that the character is redeemable by the end of the movie?
I think, I really did. I wanted to see Jesse find that escape, and that's really what was at the heart of this film, for Jesse to escape and to find distance that he couldn't find previously from his past, from his misdemeanors. And so, I really was rooting for him to have that release of, you finally done it, you're going somewhere else, and people won't remember you. They won't know you, in fact.
Right. And being a Breaking Bad fan, how much this movie meet your expectations?
Well, I think it's a bit generous to call it a movie. I understand why it was marketed as such, but let's call it what it is. It's an extended episode. It's a double bill. Did it meet my expectations? Not really, but we all wanted to see more of Walter White. We wanted to see more of the man who knocks. and we didn't really, and you're kind of left wanting by the end of it. Could this have been given to us in a different way, in a more satisfying way? But maybe that's the point. After all, that is really something that Breaking Bad was really quite good at.
And do you think the film does leave the story technically open to a sequel that would see Jesse becoming Mr. Driscoll in Alaska?
Well, never say never. And with Better Call Saul still enjoying critical acclaim, we can't rule out a reappearance of Mr. Driscoll. It could happen, and as we saw, the time difference between the ending of Breaking Bad and El Camino, which was more or less 6 years, it really didn't feel like that, so it could happen.
Right. But again, Breaking Bad is Walter White, and Walter White is Breaking Bad. And then there were several other characters like Hank, Saul. Did you miss these characters in this movie, and how much did you think that there was a need to for these characters to be added in the film?
Well, you've always got to play the percentages here. If you load a film like El Camino up with too many characters from Breaking Bad, it feels like you're playing up to the fans too heavily, and that would feel out of place. But I think it would have been nice to have had more subtle nods to the real rich range of characters that Vince Gilligan created within Breaking Bad. But I think you have to give credit to the fact that we were left wanting, and people still think, could there be more? And I do quite like that.
Right. So Matt, when we look at Breaking Bad, of course, Walter White is not a hero, but we do get a feeling. I mean, the character has such an amazing vibe that your feelings get connected to him, and there is a sentimental attachment that wants you to call him your hero. However, when you look at Jesse, I mean, does he give you a feeling of hero or an anti-hero? If not, then I mean, what's the reason behind that?
He's a flawed human being. I think it would be too liberal to call him a hero. He's not. And I think it would be too generous to call him an anti-hero. I think he is flawed, but his flaws are what give him his strength. And as you see through the course of El Camino, when he embraces his flaws and the burden and the scars that his flaws have caused him, he does display notable strength and resilience as we move towards the end of the piece. And I think that's really the strength of El Camino. You do see someone embracing their mistakes, their flaws, their errors in life, and moving forward with it. That's fairly commendable.
Right. And like you said it in the beginning, that you didn't see the movie going anywhere. So, I mean, what were your initial thoughts till the end? I mean, not only initial, but till the end. What were your thoughts, and would you want to recommend this movie for Breaking Bad fans?
I would. When I came to the end of the film, I remember it clear as day. When the credits started rolling, I sat back and thought to myself, is that it? I didn't know what to expect when the film started, and I still didn't know what to expect when the film ended. It left me wondering, what have I just watched? It felt like Breaking Bad, but it didn't feel like Breaking Bad at the same time. And as I said at the top, it felt a little bit like tying a bow around the end of Breaking Bad rather than an extension of what happens next. Would I recommend it to Breaking Bad fans? Yes, absolutely. But go into it with your eyes open.
Right. So no comparison, Matt, again, but then we have other movies like Better Call Saul. So which one of these two movies would you, root for? Would you recommend to be more interesting and be more connected? They give you a feeling of being more connected to Breaking Bad and, make you nostalgic about Breaking Bad.
Oh, it's better. It would be Better Call Saul, hands down. There's no contest. Better Call Saul is that character-driven piece of flawed characters who know they're doing wrong. They regret they're doing wrong, but they'll still do wrong anyway. It's enjoyable. It's a romp. You can see that there's trouble ahead, but they don't care. El Camino is much more a novella. It's much more a journey that you go along. and there is somewhat closure to the end of it with characters, but
right.
Better Call Saul keeps you wanting more.
Right, and do you think something overly done in El Camino?
Yes, I do. To be honest, I think El Camino is one of those stories that pays homage to Breaking Bad without pretending it's Breaking Bad, which isn't a bad thing. It's enjoyable, it's watchable, and you can re-watch it. And as I said, it does get better when you do re-watch it. It is going to age very well, but it's a very different creature to Better Call Saul.
So, how would you rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would be fair with it. I would give it a good 7 out of 10. It's by no means a bad film.
Bad.
It's directed well. Aaron Paul is great in it. The entire cast is great in it. But it's not. You come out of it thinking, what have I just watched? I've enjoyed it, but I don't know what it is, and that's why I can't really give it anything more than 7.
Right, like it's not the usual Vince Gilligan production that you normally expect as a fan.
No. It really doesn't meet some real critical expectations, and it's a little bit disappointing, but not irretrievably so.
Right. Matt, thank you very much indeed. It was a great discussion.
Thanks a lot.
That was Matt Capon with a review on 2019 movie El Camino. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media links mentioned down below. We'll see you next time with some more entertainment news. Until then, take care and goodbye.